Good Friday evening, everybody. David Paul with you in the KHOU 11 Weather Center. It is a Friday. The weekend's here. We've got increasing rain chances for the weekend. We'll take a look at that. We'll take a glimpse of our local forecast here in just a moment. This is our tropical update every day during the busy part of hurricane season at 8 o'clock. We're giving this to you here on Plus and across the digital platforms. Make sure you're watching the weather once a day, no matter where you are in Southeast Texas. That's just a rule you should make for yourself because things can change very quickly in the tropics and we don't want anybody to get caught off guard. All that being said, you know, statistically, we're at the peak of hurricane season. We're here September the 5th. The actual peak, the bullseye, is September the 10th, but anywhere in this time period between the end of August, really the middle of August, into really all the way into the middle of October, it stays busy, and then things tend to fall off statistically. So you would expect, or you would not be surprised, to look out in the open Atlantic and see a storm brewing out there right now. As far as the forecast, Colorado State, again, they're forecasting 16 named storms. Normal is 14, forecasting 8 hurricanes, 3 majors. We've had 1 major hurricane, and that's it so far for hurricanes. We only had 1. In fact, as we look at the names list, we've had 5 tropical storms, and they were all little piddly tropical storms. Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dexter, and Fernand. And then Aaron here was the 5th storm of the season, and it went to Category 5. So we've had 1 hurricane, a big one. Thank goodness, as we've mentioned, that one missed everything. By the way, if we're going to go to 16 named storms, that would take us all the way to Pablo. So if we're going to make that number, tropics need to get busy. Plenty of warm water out there. This is something called ocean heat content. This not only takes into account the sea surface temperature, but how deep that warm water goes. And right now, the highest ocean heat content, the area of the ocean that has the most available energy for a storm, is right here in the western Carib and right through the Yucatan Channel into the southeast Gulf of Mexico. Also pretty good up the off the Gulf Stream, which you would expect as the Gulf Stream goes up the east coast, and that is a river of warm water within the ocean. So closer to home, again, if something were to get going here in the western Caribbean, it's got plenty of energy to feed on. Just because that energy is there absolutely does not mean you're going to get a storm developing there. It just means the energy is available if a storm were to get in here. And not quite as much in the Gulf, but there's plenty of energy here. Sea surface temperatures look like this specifically. 82 out here off the Cape Verde Islands, 84 as you get closer to the Caribbean. 85 is the sea surface temperature in the West Carib, but again, they've got more ocean heat content even than the higher temperature here, surface temperature of 87, because that warmth goes deeper into the Western Caribbean right now. And when you get a big storm over the ocean, it tends to upwell. It'll pull that heat from beneath. So it's important for us to know how deep that warm water goes. All that being said, we look at the tropical Atlantic right now as far as activity. Nothing in the Caribbean, nothing in the Gulf, so nothing knocking on our door as we head into the weekend. This is the tropical wave we've been watching all week long. And at one point, in fact, it was yesterday evening, they bumped it up to a 90% chance that this is going to develop into our next named system. Gabrielle's the next name on the list. That being said, it's not developing. They've lowered the chance from 90% to 60%. I think it's going to go even lower than that. I don't think this is going to develop. Couple of things. The modeling on this has absolutely fallen apart. So I'm running, it's working, running the American model and the European model. We run them simultaneously for these systems developing out here, looking at the long range. And through Tuesday, it does not develop anything. If you remember yesterday, the American model kept a strong hurricane out of this going through the northeastern islands. The Euro had a weaker solution, and then it just lost it. It fell apart. And now the same thing with the American. It says, nope, through Tuesday, and it has nothing through Friday. So neither of the big models that we lean on heavily for guidance are developing that system. Isn't it interesting how just in a 48-hour span, modeling can go from aggressive development to not developing it at all? It just goes to show you, computer modeling, you know, there's still a lot we don't understand about the atmosphere. So why would this not develop? What's going on out here? There's plenty of warm water. It's not a whole lot of shear. there's something else going on, and we actually looked at this past couple of days. Dust. There's a huge plume of dust coming off the west coast of Africa. Now, quite often, getting into the second half of August and through September, the dust coming off the west coast of Africa reduces in scope and scale. Dust inhibits tropical development. It is a layer of dry, sinking air. Exactly the opposite of what you need for tropical development. That requires warm, rising, humid air. So that warm, that dry, sinking air just squashes, it can squash tropical storm development, especially if some of that dry air gets pulled into a circulation that's trying to develop. You know, it's like pouring water on a fire that's trying to get going. It'll shut it down. And that appears to be what is happening. When I put this in motion, you'll see that plume just takes over. That is a thick plume of dust. Right here, if you remember where the models were trying to do their development, that goes into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of next week. So right where it was trying to develop the system, we've got a huge plume of dust that's forecast to be there. Models are picking up on that, and they say the dust is too thick, too much dry air being pulled into a developing system, and you get nothing. So that appears to be the modeling, what the models are grabbing onto. They're not developing anything out there, which is unusual. You would expect to see something trying to get going out here of one strength or another this time of the year, and this time we don't. So again, statistics are one thing. What actually happens is the other. Pacific. So you may remember this was our tropical storm and hurricane that was out here in the Pacific. This moisture is now headed into Texas. In fact, it's been raining in West Texas most of the day. We go into Saturday, and that does bring in scattered showers for central, south, southeast Texas. Saturday, we will have scattered showers. I've got a 30% rain chance. That rain chance may be a little higher than that, but I would just expect to see scattered showers and a couple of thunder showers in Texas because of the moisture coming in from that system that is now broken up across Mexico that came out of the Pacific. We go into Sunday. I think there's a better rain chance on Sunday, and then that front's going to push through. Now, before it does, central Texas, south Texas, southeast Texas may get an inch or so of rain, but the rainfall outlook, the QPF forecast, quantitative precipitation forecast, it's going to load here in a second, has backed off a little bit on rain totals. There they are. So for Houston, we stay in the green. You know, that keeps us between 1/10 of an inch and 1/2 inch of rain, Saturday and Sunday combined. Not a whole lot. This is broad brush. You could have an isolated spot that gets more. That's general consensus. A little more rain further down the coast. And then here in the hill country, okay, they're in the blue for the most part, 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches. Now there is a little bullseye right there that we'll have to watch out for. You can have an isolated spot that could get several inches of rain. And again, all the weather offices are here are already sending out, you know, advanced updates saying, hey, this is a weekend, we could have flash flooding, we got to watch it carefully, we've got tropical moisture, we've got a front coming in, so no one's getting caught off guard. But that is the setup, and that is not a setup, at least model-wise. The models are not putting out any type of emergency weather. And because of that, Storm Prediction Center has backed off a little bit on their flood risk outlook for Sunday. If you remember yesterday, had this part of Texas lit up in yellow, which would be a 2 out of a 4-tiered threat. Today, it backed off everybody, including the Houston area, under a 1, the green, 1 out of a 4-tiered threat level, which is an improvement. That usually means they're expecting some isolated ponding on roadway, and isolated flooded roadway is possible. But overall, not looking at a huge threat. But anytime you've got tropical moisture on the front, you got to pay attention. So we'll be doing that over the weekend. Saturday here in Houston, Galveston. I'm going to leave a 30% rain chance in there for all day parts. Models are saying we're going to see scattered showers develop early to mid-morning and just last kind of off and on through noon and through 4 o'clock. We'll make 94 where the rain is not quite as heavy. The extended forecast, 60% rain chance on Sunday. I think most of this rain comes the first half of Sunday, maybe into 1 o'clock, and then that front is going to push through. That will end the rain Sunday evening, and then look what happens, lower humidity. So this is going to be nice. We're going to get dew points dropping into the 50s. That'll put our morning lows Tuesday, Wednesday in the 60s, which will feel very nice after a long hot summer. Now we still make the low 90s. We're not getting any cold air with this, but it will be much drier air. And whenever we get dew points in the 50s here in Houston, you notice it. It feels better. So that's where we are. Coming up on our next live broadcast on KHOU 11 News at 10. I'll show you that dew point forecast. We'll take a closer look at the rainfall forecast. We'll look into the improving weather conditions next week. We'll see you then for our next live update.